Hi, everybody. It's Linda Morrison here, the Art of Listening Series 3. As it continues, I am super excited today to again get deeper and speak to Annie Bourke, who does an amazing job of helping people to connect with their animals, past and present. And it is really an honor to extend the Art of Listening interview series where we've got to understand that in this day and age where there's a lot of show and tell, there's a lot of bravado, there's a lot of stuff coming right up our grill, that the art of listening, where we replace judgment with curiosity in hearing someone speak and having them have the experience of being heard is more powerful than just about anything else that's going on. Annie, thank you so much for being here. Please introduce yourself and also what we're actually going to focus on today.
Thank you, Linda. Hello, everyone who's listening and who's listening after the show. I'm the animal human relationship enricher, and I have telepathic conversations with animals who are living or in spirit. And telepathic conversations is how animals talk to each other, whether they're domestic or wild. And it's something that we can learn as humans. And in addition to having the conversations, which can give the human parents peace of mind and clarity, I also mentor animal parents and animal professionals to master telepathy so that they can talk with their own animals and with animal clients. And it really just changes your world and your animal's world when you can communicate with each other. It's really profound for our animals to have a voice and to let you know what they want you to know.
I love hearing that. And as someone who grew up being told that, oh, we don't have enough space in the yard for a dog. Um, it was quite an interesting time. But we got lots and lots and lots of budgies and birds that got let out by whomever wanted to let them fly. So kids, my sister, whatever was actually going on. But later, there was birds that came back to that particular house, and my dad looked after them, which was weird. So they kept on coming back, kept on coming back, kept on coming back. What can you speak into around that? Because we were going about our busy lives, but um, but also what people need to understand that they're quite powerful when they get to open to an animal, but also get to let one go or have the privilege of loving one and then letting one go.
I haven't actually talked to anyone who's deliberately let animals go, apart from watching people doing animal rescues and rehabilitating them and then releasing them back to the wild so they can continue their wild life. But I think, once you have an animal, you create a bond with them. There's a heart connection and a soul connection there, even though if you're not consciously aware of it, your animal will feel that you are looking after them and you are concerned about them, and there's an element of love there. So, listening to your story, I would assume that some of those birds came back because they knew that they were loved and cared for, they were fed, people handled them gently, and, were concerned for their welfare, but also understood the need for freedom, even though your sister and other siblings may have been very young at the time and not realizing what was happening.
Whoops,
Um,
Daisy. Mm.
yeah, but it's, animals do love freedom to an extent. And so maybe they're just coming back to be grateful that you do let them out and have that freedom, but they know that they're safe and secure back with you. They're getting good quality food, fresh water, they're safe from predators, and there are advantages in belonging with humans.
100%. So, having worked a lot with humans, not so much animals across my 3 decades of work, I know that often people will tell me a lot more when they speak into animals that they've had, whether it be a cat, a dog, several dogs, horses, whatever, and they're much more free with their emotion around speaking about their pets more so than humans. Um, can you tell me a little bit about the work that you're actually doing with loss and bereavement and what you've actually got moving forward to help people with pet loss,
Hmm.
which, in my opinion, will help them with all types of loss. But
Hmm. I just want to refer to your point about people being able to talk about their animals and the emotions. And that's what it is. It's an emotional connection. It's a relationship. Like we have relationships with other humans, whether they're friends or family. But animals are different. Like they're pure souls. They're non-judgmental. They don't criticize us. You know, when I get feedback from them, if they want to tell their human parent something, it's constructive feedback. Like it's not negative at all. They're trying to help their humans. And I think that love relationship is just so powerful because it's how we receive unconditional love, how we experience that. And on a soul level and on our spiritual level, that's really important to help evolve our heart. So animals do play a critical role in our spiritual development.
mm,
And then that's why it's so difficult when our animals do pass away because they're such a big part of our lives. And particularly for people who live on their own, their animal is who they interact with on a daily basis. And they
mm,
get that love and affection and companionship. They can tell their animal anything and the animal doesn't judge them, they just listen and suddenly they're not there. And that just leaves a huge hole in their life. And I've had a number of animal parents say, it's a hole in my heart. They just feel as though part of them's gone or that their
mm,
heart's shattered. It's just so difficult. And like you come home and, they're not in their bed or their favourite places they normally are. You've
mm,
got their food bowls still there because you can't bear to wash them up and put them away. Their collars there, their leads there, their blankets, their garments, their toys. All of those things are just reminders of that beautiful relationship you've had, which has suddenly been extinguished. And it's hard because our animals don't live as long as we do. And so we know when we get them that at some stage we will have to face saying goodbye to them. And that's just tough, no matter how old the animal is. And everyone goes through grief and experiences grief differently. There's no timeline for when you should have recovered. And for people who don't have animals, they don't understand the devastation that animal parents feel when their animal passes away. And I've seen people writing, everyone says I should be over it by now. They just tell me to get on with life. It was just a pet. What are you going on about? And they don't understand that deep, deep love and that strong bond you've had with that animal and how empty it feels on an emotional level as well as the physical level in the house, not having them there anymore. So it is very difficult and it may be compounded by having other losses. So if they've lost other animals before that, or if they've had human losses as well, that build-up of grief can just be overwhelming. And I've had people saying they can't eat, they can't sleep, they just want to be with their animal, they just want to hug them one more time, um, take them for another walk, just spending time with them. It's just
mm,
so hard, that physical separation.
mm,
But what my animal conversations with animals in spirit have taught me is that although the physical body's no longer with us, the soul endures. So once they pass over, they're on the other side, whether you call it heaven or some other term, the soul still exists. And that's how I can communicate with them. I just tune in with the energy of their soul through looking at a photograph of them. and then they can answer their humans' questions. So people want to know, was it your time? Did I do the right thing? Are you mad at me for the decisions made at end of life? They're very common emotions. People hold a lot of
Yeah.
regret and remorse about that end of life, and that can stay with them for years,
Mm.
because they're not aware that they can connect with their animal and get their questions answered. And no animal has ever been mad with their humans. They know that they love them and they've made decisions
Got
based
it.
on the information
Mm.
that they've
Mm.
received.
Mm.
And again, it's very comforting getting those messages. And I know one of my clients was doing my mentorship program and spoke to his cat who passed over more than 15 years ago. And he'd been holding all of this guilt and remorse about what had happened with the animal. And he said after the first sentence, all that guilt was just kicked out of the ballpark. It
Mm.
was such a relief to have that emotional release. And our animals don't want us carrying all these emotions. They know it's not healthy for us to keep hanging on. And
Mm.
once we have this conversation and we know that they're okay and we get all these messages of love and gratitude, it just changes the grief process, getting the questions answered, and you
Yeah.
can get to a stage where you're more at peace with their passing.
Mm. Which is the most important thing ultimately, because yeah, we want to go on as humans to produce more, be happy, be all of the things. Um, I'm quite interested in that. I've got to work with a lot of people with PTSD and those with neurodivergent, um, uh, situations where they'll actually speak more to a pet or develop more with anything else I can say. Doesn't matter how good I am as a coach or whatever. Um, I want to just say one more thing before we close off is that um, we need to be responsible caretakers of whatever we take on, whether it's a human kid or another dog that we think, or dog, pet, whatever it is, that we think we're taking care of, but often it's taking care of us a lot of the time. What would you say into that? Because these are serious but amazing decisions. But also, we happen to live in Australia where there's lots and lots and lots of fabulous places where they do rehouse dogs, cats, pets, etc. Um, what would you say to people that are getting to that end of life or a stage where they go, oh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to look after this pet? What would you say to that?
Look, there's some very valid concerns that people don't want to pass away and leave their animals homeless or without a carer. And so some people do plan in advance about who they want their animal to go to if they do pass away. And it's also a valid concern of animals I've spoken to. They're concerned for their elderly owners as well, and they're worrying and stressing about what happens if their parent's not there anymore. So some people uh, can adopt a senior animal. And so it's not as though you're getting a young kitten or a puppy,
Right.
but a lot of rescue agencies find it harder to get their older animals adopted because people want something that's young and cute that they can grow up with.
Right.
But it's sort of towards the end of the human life, it may be kinder for the human and the animal to adopt an older animal and give them quality life so they're not stuck in a rescue agency for the rest of their life and they get to spend some quality time being loved by humans.
Yeah.
And then one of the programs I've heard about is where an organisation is actually paying for the vet fees and food for seniors to adopt an animal. And so then it means that the animal's not taking up space in a rescue agency and they're getting loved and cared for, and the older person has company, but they're not having to find the resources to help look after the animal. And I think that's a beautiful idea, giving company to
Beautifully
the
said.
animal and the
Yeah.
human.
Yeah, beautifully said.
So,
Also, also working from the human point of view, it gets the human out walking, fresh air, having, conversation that's neutral with people. I talk to dogs. I don't have one. I talk, you know what I mean? So it's like a neutral thing to be able to be with others, which is only going to be good for the pet, but also for the human. I think that's amazing.
mhm.
Mm,
So, going back to your earlier question about my upcoming plans, I'm actually
yeah,
developing a little mini course called Living with Loss, and it's coping
right.
with bereavement because there's just so many animal parents out there
Yeah,
who don't know that they can connect with their animals through a conversation and don't know the peace of mind that they can get with getting their questions
yeah,
answered. And I'll be talking about human experiences and the emotions with grief, with some of which we've just talked about, some practical things they can do to help with grief,
great.
what the animals perceive about separation from their humans as well, and then knowing that there's life beyond death, that the soul endures. And a lot of my work now revolves around animal soul reincarnation, which I knew nothing about till one of my cats let me experience it. And now I've helped lots of clients through their grief because I've discovered that their animal is going to reincarnate
Mm,
and come back to them in a different body, but come back to them. And that powerfully changes the whole grief process. So I want people to be aware that these things can happen and
yeah,
that once their animal passes away, that's not the end of the relationship. That love bond that we have with our animal endures, their soul endures, and we can connect with them in a number of ways. And that's the message I
cool.
want to get out to people so that they're not stuck in grief and
Mm,
that they can move forward with hope.
mm. Yeah, beautifully said. And thank you so much. And I've got to say that it is a job lot, love and loss always. For those that get to love, we also get to lose. But there is a way, to soften the blow or, you know, bounce, bounce with the emotions that we get to have, um, as um, as we, yeah, bring great souls into our lives and beyond. Thank you so much for the work you do, Annie.
Thank you for having me as a guest today and being able to share my passion for animals, but also my passion about making a difference for animals and their humans. And working through grief is just part of that process.
Yeah, it is profound. Thank you so much. Below in the show notes will be Annie's contact details and, for you to be able to experience her course as well. Thanks, Annie.
Thank you.